Welcome back to Talk of the Town on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
We welcome you back to WHTC's Talk of the Town for this Thursday, February the 4th. I'm Gary Stevens, and Thursday, first Thursday of the month, we usually spend this time chatting with the Chief Operating Officer for the City of Holland, man who helps keep Holland going. He is the City Manager, Keith Van Beek, joins us via the Zoom connection from his office at Holland City Hall. Keith, good morning. Welcome back to WHTC's Talk of the Town.
Good morning, Gary. It's good to be here with you.
Glad you are with us and glad you out there can join in the conversation. Not via the Zoom connection. Well, no, we don't do that because we want everyone to have a chance to chat. And you can call us at 395-1450, 395-1450. I will begin our conversation, Keith, with a question I posed to Zeeland Mayor Kevin Kleinstra earlier this week, and I'll pose it to you because Holland and Zeeland have had their retreats, or in Holland's case, the advance. They've dealt with establishing goals and priorities as part of the budget-making process. Tell us a little bit about some of the goals and some of the ambitions that the city council basically said, Keith, we want these things in the next budget. This is what we feel are the most important things facing the Tulip City. What for lack of a better term, Keith, what marching orders did the city council give you on this?
Yeah, happy to speak to that. Certainly we had a different type of process this year that always starts with coffee with council, where citizens kind of can download information to council, and then staff always has a chance to talk about the last year and kind of give their frontline perspective in that conversation too. And council had to do it by Zoom this year, which is a little different. Although I'll say I think sometimes they like it because I didn't make them bring out the sticky dots and prioritize all the things that they talked about, which I think some of them will admit that they probably like not having to do that. But Gary, it was good. Council had a great back and forth discussion, and were able to speak from their perspective, kind of things that they thought were important moving forward. And there was a lot of overlap in what they talked about. And also from my perspective, leading the staff, it was great too, because there was a lot of continuation from things that have been priorities in past years. So let me just name a couple of those. One was broadband. We have a different situation here in Holland. There's a lot of conversation definitely going on across the nation about the lack of access to broadband and fiber. And while we don't have that exact problem probably in Holland because we have providers, the discussion that we're having here is we have the chance of making that more of a public utility. So that was, I think, mentioned by every single council member. So we're continuing to move that forward and look to have something there. There was discussion about the community energy plan and interest and a continued emphasis on moving those discussions forward. There was a sense of what we're doing with housing at all price points and kind of the development that we have going on in Holland, and yet really a focus on wanting to address affordable housing concerns. Those were probably some of the major ongoing type things. But there was also a sense, right, Gary, about COVID and just the uncertainty of budgets and all those types of things to kind of say, okay, how do we balance all of the big plans and the big hopes and dreams that we have for the city with the fiscal realities that are facing us also?
Now, one other thing, this is not meant to compare Zeeland and Holland, but there were some things that in the Zeeland document I was looking at and I'm going to bring it up for the Holland situation. What Tim Clunder did with the Zeeland City Council, he went back to, okay, this is what the Zeeland Council set as their priorities last year, things they wanted to get done, and basically which boxes got ticked, which boxes got checked off, and which things can have to be carried on. You sort of alluded to it a little bit earlier in your response to the first question, Keith. Certain things that accomplished this year from the goals from last year, and other things that need to be carried over into this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way we capture that here, Gary, is we have a strategic, but we have a business plan. So part of that conversation with council at our retreat, and yes, you noted, we call it the advance here in Holland, was a report that I provide that really says, okay, we're 6 months through our fiscal year, and here's kind of an update on that report. And that's intended to say, hey, we've completed things. So just kind of a random sampling, because there's 4 pages of that. And if citizens are interested in that, by the way, they can see that report was actually approved by council as part of the agenda packet last night. So it's out there, so people that are interested can read it. But like the dog park was cross it off the list, really big thing this past year. We completed an alternative fuel and equipment policy this last year that triggered a purchase of some hybrid vehicles and then an electric vehicle. So there's always progress being made, and sometimes it's one of those boxes where it's like crossed off completely, like a dog park, because when it's done and it's done. And then there's other projects that it's like, okay, it's still a large goal, but we're definitely recognizing multiple kind of steps in the progress towards that goal.
395-1450. If you have a question for Holland City Manager Keith Van Beek, you'll be happy to answer it at 395-1450. This came up a few moments ago, and unfortunately, I cannot. Well, let's get to a call, and then I'll bring up a point that was brought up when we had Holland City Councilman Dave Hoekstra joining us last week. Good morning. You're on WHTC's Talk of the Town. You're with the City Manager, Keith Van Beek.
Hello, Mr. Manager. I know you explained this in previous months about the updating of the zoning in Holland. The UDO, is that what it is? Or something like that?
Yeah, good memory. The UDO, we call it.
But I know that now I'm seeing yard signs from people about even about the updates and the policies that might happen if it's agreed to. And I think last time you had deleted something that was controversial, I believe, with duplexes and stuff. There was something that was deleted, and I thought that all the excitement or problems that people had with it might go away. But there still seems to be something that's kind of causing some people's fur to be rubbed the wrong way. And how soon is this going to be decided? And how do you think you're going to solve the problems that people have with it? Or are you going to solve it, or is it just going to be scrapped totally? So I'll hang up and listen. Thanks again.
I thank you very much for the call, Keith.
Yeah, sure. First, what I'm going to do to the caller, and for everyone listening, I'm just going to talk about process, right? So, and especially in my role as the city manager, I don't have a legislative function, right? So I don't make the law, and I don't vote on the law. But the process that we're in right now is Planning Commission has in our charter the responsibility to take a look at our zoning and planning requirements. That's right in the middle of this UDO process that we're going through. So the process is that they have been, for over 2 years now, been taking a look at that process. And I think it's fair to say they're kind of hoping that they're in maybe the last couple months of that process. And then ultimately they would take a final vote on hundreds and hundreds of pages of things. And then that document would go to City Council, who has the ultimate legislative authority in that area. And then they would review everything there, and then they would take a final vote on that. And all of those meetings are public. Right now, all of those are not only on Zoom, but they're also available to be go back and watch later. So anyone that's interested and wants to dig into the detail of everything that's being discussed can do that. Now, as to the other part of the question of how are we going to and I'm going to use the caller's words, I think, solve or quell maybe controversy or opposition. What we find, and what I find quite often in things that we do is, which is appropriate, right? Different people have different opinions on different things that we're considering. And in that multiple 200-page document, most of it is probably things that people are like, okay, fine, whatever, I don't care. And then every once in a while you find those elements that you have different people that have different opinions on things, and sometimes they feel strongly for or against something. And that's where that process is in place right now. It's public. And the Planning Commission will have the first vote on deciding what they think is right for the community and making that recommendation to council. And then ultimately council will take a vote on that.
Let's get to a call, and then I will get to the hopefully the caller's comment that they asked during the Ottawa County Commissioners segment last month might be more in line for the Holland City Manager or maybe the Zoning Commission in the city. Good morning. You're on Talk of the Town with City Manager Keith Van Beek.
I'd like to ask the city manager, are they going to move the Windmill to Centennial Park or to Windmill Island?
Oh, you're talking about not the Windmill. You're talking about
the greenhouse.
The greenhouse. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you clarified that. I think as city manager, I'd have a short future if I suggested moving the windmill from Windmill Island Gardens, right? No, thanks for the question. We have a process right now where we're asking for input, and we have a group of people that are from the Parks Commission and certainly from staff and from the Historic District Commission that are taking a look at potential sites where if we chose to move the greenhouse that's down by that triangle piece down by Evergreen Commons, is there maybe a good home for it somewhere else where we could recognize and keep the historic significance of that building, but also incorporate it into another site. So no decisions have been made about exactly where that should be. Kind of per an earlier question, sometimes people have some strong feelings of where it should or shouldn't go, but we're working through that process right now and hope through that to have a recommendation to council later this year.
But now it's actually an historical site, isn't it?
It is, and that's part of the thing that they're taking a look at. The historical site probably is more connected to the building that's there, and part of the conversation is that building, the history of it was always to support the plantings that were at Centennial Park. So that's. I'm not saying that decision has been made, but that's one of the reasons that they're talking about that perhaps it fits pretty well for that, a smaller portion of that building to be at the park.
There's probably not enough room at Centennial Park to put it, is there?
Again, you're asking me for details that you can make your feeling known on that, and we've got a good collection of individuals that are taking a look at that and deciding whether or not it is a fit or not.
Okay, thank you.
All right, appreciate the call. Thank you. 395-1450, 395-1450. Another caller wants to ask you a question. Good morning. You're on the line with Keith Van Beek.
Yeah, have they ever thought about putting that greenhouse on Windmill Island?
That's one of the sites that they're taking a look at and considering.
Yeah, because I think that'd be a very good idea. I grew up in the area where the greenhouses and they did a lot of nice things for the city of Holland there.
All right. Appreciate the call. Thank you. 395-1450, 395-1450. Okay, now we'll get to the question that was posed back on the 28th to Ottawa County Commissioners Roger Bergman and Phil Kyers. I'll play you the interview. I'll play you the cut, Keith, and then maybe you can sort of answer a little bit of the questions because, frankly, we couldn't at the time.
Yes, on 32nd Street between Old Orchard and 64th Street.
Yeah.
Which is the dividing line between Allegan County and Ottawa County.
Mm-hmm.
Old Orchard is the city limit. There's a space there that no one seems to plow.
Hmm.
You know, we got Allegan County, we got Ottawa County, and then the Holland City. It's right by the church there, and they don't seem to plow it, and it's a pretty bad, and it's one of the areas that's a main thing.
Okay, quick. All right, we'll stop it right there. But that's the gist of the question there, Keith. What is that something that you're going to have to meet with some of your colleagues to try to figure out that problem?
Yeah, it's one of those interesting ones. I'm going to have to give Roger and Phil a hard time the next time I see them, and like, hey guys, you should have been able to answer this one for me, so I don't have to. Actually, Gary, doing this for a long time, that's one of the most confusing sections right there, right? Because you've really got three different entities that have responsibility, because our city plows obviously are out. And then because it's a county line road, also you have an Ottawa County Road Commission and you have the Allegan County Road Commission. What happens on those kind of shared streets is typically there's an agreement about who has the responsibility for it. And sometimes the way that works is that one of the border lines will do both sides of the street. And then there's other times where basically, and quite often it's like, what's the route of the truck type thing is really, it comes down to kind of that operational reality. Sometimes one jurisdiction is responsible for one side of the road and the other jurisdiction is responsible for the other side of the road. So I can't specifically answer the question, partly because it wasn't real specific there, as like Old Orchard by the church. I'll admit I can't exactly picture where that is, but if it's where I'm thinking, it's kind of down almost like by Post Farms, which is outside of that. That's actually outside of where the city would be. And that's a borderline road between Ottawa and Allegan County. And again, I think that might be one of those instances where literally the truck from Ottawa County might do one side of the road and the truck from Allegan County does the other side.
Similar, you got the 30, you got, technically 32nd Street in Holland is taking both sides, but there are times when, it turns into Ottagon Road, and that's really for the township. And, and then we have that issue when you have a county line, a road as a county line. That can be an issue with the plow. But again, I wanted to play that to try to maybe answer the listener's question a little bit better than what we could.
Yeah, hopefully that helped a little bit. You had me hanging on the edge of my seat, Gary. I was like, you didn't tell me what the question was going to be. So I hope I got at least a B+.
Okay, we'll take that as well. All right, where are we? We have a couple of minutes left. Where are we now on the budget process? Now that the retreat, the advance has been done, the videos have been produced by staff to show to city council. Council has given its list to city staff, what they think are priorities. Where do we go from here on the budget process, Keith?
Yeah, all of our department heads are barricaded in their offices, whether that be home or at the city right now, because they are responsible will be turning in all of their budget requests to the finance department, and our new finance director, Lynn McCammon. Then the proverbial, you know how they talk about the monkey on the back? Well, then it'll shift from the department heads, and then it'll go to the finance department, who then needs to collect that all of that information and put it together. And then they will come to me and say, all right, Keith, here's the good news, or here's the bad news. Like, how does this all balance with the priorities and the requests and the needs and the money that we think are coming in? And usually, Gary, that's a little bit of a mixture of it's good news in some places and bad news in other places. And then Lynn and I will work very closely together to try to make all of that balance in such a way. And then the beginning of April, we release both to council and to the public the first cut of the city manager's recommended budget. And then through the month of April, we'll have council have some sessions where they dig into the details there. And then in May, we have a public hearing and then ultimately a vote by council to approve that budget.
That's the process. Keith Van Beek, Holland City Manager. We're out of time on the segment. Thank you very much for joining us this morning and answering our questions. Wish you and all at the staff well over the next month or so. And if all goes well, let's do this again on the first Thursday of March.
My pleasure, Gary. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Keith Van Beek on 99.7 and 1450 WHTC.